The tree that remembers every soul. Once, in a small village nestled between rolling green hills, there stood an ancient tree. This was no ordinary tree. Its roots ran deep into the earth, and its branches stretched high into the sky, as if trying to touch the stars. The villagers called it Wath Memory Treeing, for it was said that this tree remembered every soul that had ever passed beneath its leaves. No one knew how old the tree truly was. Some said it had been there since the beginning of time, while others whispered that it had grown from a seed planted by the first storyteller who ever lived. But one thing was certain. If you stood beneath its branches and listened very, very carefully, you could hear the echoes of stories long forgotten. Among the villagers was a young girl named Liora. She had always been curious about the world, but more than anything, she loved stories. Every evening, she would sit by the fire and listen to the elders tell tales of heroes and monsters, love and loss. But her favorite stories were always about the memory tree. One day, Liora decided she wanted to hear the tree's stories for herself. She packed a small satchel with bread and a flask of water, kissed her mother goodbye, and set off toward the tree. The path was long and winding, but Liora walked with determination. As she got closer, she noticed something strange. The air grew warmer, and the scent of old parchment and dried flowers filled her nose. It was as if the tree itself was breathing memories into the wind. When she finally stood before the great tree, she placed her hand on its rough bark and closed her eyes. At first, there was only silence, but then, very faintly, she heard a whisper. "Who are you, child?" Liora gasped. The voice was soft, like rustling leaves, but clear as a bell. I'm Liora," she said. "I came to hear your stories." The tree seemed to sigh, its branches swaying gently. A listener. It has been many years since someone asked to hear the old tales." Liora sat down at the base of the tree, hugging her knees to her chest. "Will you tell me one?" The memory tree was silent for a moment, as if deciding where to begin. Then it started to speak. "Long ago, before this village existed, there was a kingdom ruled by a kind and generous king. He loved his people deeply, but his heart was heavy with a secret sorrow. He could not remember his own childhood. No matter how hard he tried, his earliest memories were blank, as if someone had erased them. One day an old traveler came to the palace and told the king of a tree that remembered every soul, that had only... The king traveled through dark forests and across wide rivers, facing many dangers along the way. When he finally reached the memory tree, he placed his hand upon its trunk, just as Liora had done, and closed his eyes. The tree showed him flashes of his past, a little boy, lost and afraid, taken in by villagers who raised him as their own. The king had not been born a prince at all. He had been a child of the people, and that was why he loved them so dearly. When he returned to his kingdom, he ruled not as a distant... "That's beautiful," she whispered. "That is only one story," the tree said. "Here are countless others, some joyful, some sorrowful, all part of the great tapestry of life." Liora spent the whole afternoon listening as the tree shared tales of lost loves, brave adventurers, and quiet moments of kindness. Each story felt alive, as if the people in them were standing right beside her. As the sun began to set, Liora knew it was time to return home. She stood and bowed to the tree. "Thank you," she said. "I will never forget these stories." "And I will remember you," the tree replied. "Come back whenever you wish to hear more." With a heart full of wonder, Liora walked back to the village. That night, as she sat by the fire, the elders asked if she had any stories to share. She smiled and began to speak, not with her own words, but with the stories the tree had given her. From that day on, Liora became the village's storyteller, passing down the tales of the memory tree to anyone who would listen. And though she grew older, she never stopped visiting the tree, for she knew that as long as it stood, no story and no soul would ever truly be forgotten. And so, the memory tree lived on, its branches whispering in the wind, keeping alive the echoes of every life that had ever touched its leaves. The end.